Imagine being 7 years old and your legs ache so terribly you can barely walk. You didn't fall, you weren't injured. The pain is coming strictly from your own blood trying to move through your veins. For millions of children across Africa, this chronic suffering is a daily reality. For decades, the medical community struggled to explain why it kept striking the same communities and the same families. To understand why, you have to look at the blood itself. A healthy red blood cell is round and highly flexible, like a tiny donut. It can easily squeeze through the smallest blood vessels to deliver oxygen everywhere your body needs it. But with sickle cell disease, that structure collapses. The cells become stiff and rigid. They lose their smooth edges and curl inward. They take on the hooked shape of a traditional farm sickle, which is exactly where the disease gets its name. Because these malformed cells are rigid, they get stuck. They create microscopic traffic jams in your blood vessels, starving tissues of oxygen and causing severe fatigue, organ damage, and that devastating pain. In the brutal logic of biology, natural selection tends to be ruthless. Genetic traits that cause severe pain and early mortality usually vanish from the gene pool over time. Yet when we look at this heat map tracking the sickle cell trait, we see the opposite. It survives in massive concentrations right across West and Central Africa. This leaves us with a biological paradox. Why would human DNA preserve and pass down a genetic flaw that causes such incredible suffering? Much of West and Central Africa sits inside the malaria belt. For thousands of years, a mosquito-borne parasite called Plasmodium falciparum has been the deadliest killer on the continent. To survive, this parasite must infiltrate a human red blood cell. It relies on that plump, round structure as an incubator to multiply. As we can see in this cellular cross-section, a sickle-shaped cell breaks that process. The parasite cannot thrive or reproduce effectively inside that stiff, collapsed architecture. Over generations, human biology traded the flexible round cell for a jagged one to build a hostile environment for the invader. The mutation persists because it acts as a biological shield, evolved specifically to break the parasite's life cycle. To see how this defense mechanism actually functions in a population, we have to look at the genetic math. Every person inherits 2 copies of the hemoglobin gene, one from each parent. This diagram shows scenario 1. If you inherit 0 copies of the mutation, your blood cells are perfectly normal. You are healthy, but completely defenseless against a severe malaria infection. If you inherit exactly 1 copy, you carry what is called the sickle cell trait. You do not have the disease. You remain mostly healthy, and crucially, you gain a high resistance to malaria. But if you inherit 2 copies of the mutation, the defense mechanism backfires. You develop full sickle cell disease and face a lifetime of severe health complications. Biologists call this precise balance a heterozygote advantage. In a highly infectious environment, carrying 1 mutated copy becomes your best chance at staying alive. Because that single copy kept people alive long enough to have children, nature selected for it. The trait became deeply woven into the population across the region. When we plot 2 healthy trait carriers on a Punnett square, we see the catch. When they have a child together, the genetic math resets. There is a rigid, unavoidable 1 in 4 chance that their child will inherit both mutated copies and develop the full disease. That specific biological lottery is why a densely populated country like Nigeria carries the highest absolute number of sickle cell patients in the world today. The millions of children living with this disease are paying a heavy biological price for the malaria immunity that kept their ancestors alive. The high prevalence of sickle cell in Africa is the outcome of a specific biological exchange. It is the physical record of human adaptation, a reshaping of the body to endure the deadliest conditions on Earth. Evolution rarely produces perfection. Instead, it makes brutal, necessary trades to ensure a species keeps going. Viewing the disease through the lens of this biological transaction is the first step towards changing how we treat it. It shifts the focus from a genetic error to the mechanism that kept humanity alive.